My name is Elizabeth Ann Odom. I go by Ann though, and I was born in 1949. I became chief cook and bottle washer at the ripe old age of 7. When I was young, I thought I knew everything, and I actually knew nothing. The happiest day of my life, probably, or one of the happiest days, was the day my oldest son was born. And the worst day of my life was about 2 years before that, when my daughter was born dead. I was pregnant 7 times. I ended up with 2 children out of that, number 3 and number 7. I was a customer service rep for an insurance and 401k company. Don't let yourself be pulled into the politics of the workplace, because that's going to cause you nothing but grief. Been overweight all of my life. I have lost 180 pounds. It's taken me 6 years, and I've got about 40 or 50 more. I'm addicted to sugar, and I know that. So I try to get my sugar, my cravings, I do it through fruit. You can eat well and still diet if you know how to eat well. People who don't drive the speed limit drive me crazy.
Can you tell me your name and when you were born?
My name is Elizabeth Ann Odom. I go by Ann though, and I was born in 1949. I've got a birthday coming up on September 3rd.
Is it going to be the 73rd or 4th?
74th, yeah.
Good
74th.
For you. I'm 72. Well, nice chatting with you today.
You as well.
Let's see. The first question I'll ask is, what lessons have you learned in life?
So many. When I was young, I thought I knew everything, and I actually knew nothing. Life teaches you patience, even though you don't want to learn it. It teaches you to be kind, unless you want to feel other people's unkindness. And I think it teaches you to be generous in spirit. It's taught me that.
Well, and why is it important to be generous in spirit?
I believe that I have had a lot of good things happen to me in my life. And I believe that because of that, it's my duty, more or less, to spread it forward or pay it forward, however you want to say it. A few kind words are so easy and so much appreciated. People should just remember that.
So you feel if you're kind in spirit, it goes a long ways to making other people happy and fulfilled?
Maybe just a few moments of happiness, but hey, every little bit helps. And especially if you're having a really bad day, just a few moments of happiness can lift you up.
And tell me about again how you said that when you were young you thought you knew everything, but then you realized you didn't. And so some of this we may share with others, like young people. And so is a lesson you learned. Could you say something like, the lesson I learned was that when you're young you think you know everything, but beware, you may not, and you realize that later on. However you want to say it.
Okay. I forgot how you asked me to start it. I've lost my mind.
Well, yeah. So the question being, what when you were young, how did you feel?
When I was young, I thought that I knew everything. In all reality, I knew nothing. Life teaches you a lot of things. Some things you're slower to learn than others, but you'll learn them eventually.
Okay, that's well put. Thank you. Next question. Can you tell me a summary of your life in about 1 minute?
Oh boy. 74 years condensed into 1 minute will be hard, but I'll give it a try. I was born in Texas. My birth certificate actually does not list a city because I was born in a hospital built out on a pier to offload World War II wounded. And since I was born in 1949, it had been sold to a private entity and was just a regular hospital. Anyway, I was born in Matagorda County in Texas. I grew up in Texas. My dad was in the oil field. We traveled a lot. We lived in a lot of different places. We moved to South Carolina when I was 2. Lived there for 3 years. Then we came back. My dad was a Boilermaker working on the atomic bomb plant that was being built in Georgia. Met a lot of interesting people. I was very young, but I have some good memories. Then we moved back to Texas. My dad was in the barbecue business for a while, with my mother's help. Then he became ill with heart attacks, and my mother had to go to work. And so I became chief cook and bottle washer at the ripe old age of 7. But I learned a lot. My dad would sit in the kitchen and coach me as I cooked and cleaned and did everything I needed to. And he would go outside with me. We had animals, so they had to be taken care of. So that fell on me most of the time as well. But you learn self-sufficiency at a young age when those things happen to you. Anyway, unfortunately, my dad died when I was 15, a massive heart attack. My mother and I lived alone until I married at the ripe old age of 17. Like I said, thought I knew everything, didn't know anything. That marriage lasted quite a while. Unfortunately, I've had several of those. But anyway, it was, all of them were good learning lessons, every one of them.
Well, what type of
And
things did you think
you,
you
I'm
well,
sorry.
what type of things do you think you learned from some of your marriages?
Patience, number one, I didn't have any when I was young. I was like a lot of young people. I had no patience whatsoever. And I had to learn that, especially after I started having children. I have 2 sons. My oldest is 52 and my youngest is 46, 6 years between them. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, you learn a lot of patience, not only with your husband, but with children, with other people, with your siblings, with your parents, with everybody. Patience is a hard lesson to learn. And I don't know that I've got it down pat yet, but I'm still working on it.
Well, and so why would you say patience is important? Does it make you happier? Are you frustrated without patience? Why is patience important?
I think you got that in reverse. You are frustrated without patience. Frustration causes anxiety and stress and uncomfortable feelings and stomach aches and all kinds of terrible things. So when you learn patience, that frustration is not in your body. That acid is not in your stomach. You feel better. You are better.
Well put. And so do you want to go on with your life story?
Okay. I don't remember where I left off. I think I left off when I moved to where I was talking about moving to California. I moved in with my son and daughter-in-law after my last marriage fell apart. I've been with them almost 10 years now. I live with them now here in California. And I was living practically next door to them in Texas. So I just kind of moved next door. We have been so many wonderful places. We've been to Aruba. We've been all over Mexico. We've been to Hawaii twice. We've just been everywhere and had the best time. Living with them has been a wonderful adventure. I try to help out. I do the grocery shopping and most of the cleaning and the cooking. I try to take some of the load off of them. They both work. They both have really good jobs and they're very tired when they get through. So I have dinner ready. And the house is straight and everything's good. The dogs are taken care of. So anyway, I've been living here for 2 years. The first, a little over 2 years. We moved in October of 2021 and lived in Santa Barbara until April of 2023. And my kids bought a house here. And so now we're living in
Carpinteria, California.
Yes, everybody calls it carp, and I've become one of those people who does all the time. Yes, Carpinteria, California. Beautiful little beach town, wonderful people, just the best atmosphere, so pretty. Weather's great. Everybody else is burning up, and it might be 80 out there. We don't even have the AC on, and it's August almost. So, yes, wonderful part of the world.
Tell me, what's one of the high points of your life when made you very happy or satisfied, and one of the low points of your life, and any lessons learned?
Well, they both have to do with children. The happiest day of my life, probably, or one of the happiest days, was the day my oldest son was born. He was my third pregnancy, but my first live child. And the worst day of my life was about 2 years before that, when my daughter was born dead. So both of those events had to do with children, and both of them touched me to the bottom of my heart. And I learned something very valuable from both. No matter how discouraged you get, no matter how depressed and alone you feel, there will be happiness in your future. That patience comes up again. You just have to be patient enough to wait for something great to happen or make it happen yourself. However you need to do it, it will happen.
And is the lesson for other people that if you have a miscarriage or you weren't able to conceive, that you can keep trying and then likely you will?
That's true. I was pregnant 7 times. I ended up with 2 children out of that, number 3 and number 7. I am a very stubborn person. I watched my only brother's only son grow up alone. He was an only child and he was always a little lonely. I was determined that I would not have an only child, and I didn't. I was in bed 6 months to have that youngest one, but I've got him and he's 46, and I'm so proud of that. You just have to keep trying.
And were you in bed 6 months because you were told if you got out of bed that your child may not survive?
Actually, I would not have survived. My blood pressure was at stroke level, and I had bed rest to keep that down, because when you're lying flat on your back, your pressure is a lot lower than if you're sitting up or standing or moving around. And I was taking back, I mean, that's 46 years ago. Medication was a little limited back then. So they had me on Valium, which I'm highly susceptible to, apparently. He gave me I think a 5 milligram, and I took one, and my husband could not wake me up for 20 hours. So we had to cut those in half, but I was slept probably the first couple of months of that pregnancy. And then the rest of it was, again, teaching me patience, because not being able to get up and do things is very difficult for somebody like me. I am very active. And just to lie there, I read a gazillion books, believe me. Reading is the best thing if you're not feeling well. Absolutely the best thing.
And why is that? You get to escape from your current life or what?
True, a book will take you to wherever it is. If it's the middle of a jungle, if it's in South America, if it's in, your home state, wherever it is, it will take you there. The characters, you'll get involved in their lives. You'll begin to care about what happens to them. Reading is just the best thing that anyone can do.
Well put. Okay, let's see. What jobs have you had?
Oh, I've had many. I have done all kinds of work. Before I married, I was a statistical typist in Houston, Texas, for the Houston Grain Exchange. Very boring job. I just typed grain certificates all day long, and then I had to part them and separate them and file them. It was, very boring job. I moved to Cookbook Bakery, and I was an accounting clerk. And at least it smelled good there, like fresh bread all the time. Made you stay hungry, not a good thing. And then I took a few years off work when I was having children. And then after my boys were, I guess, 2 and 8, I went to work in Beaumont as a secretary. And I worked there for quite a while. Then I moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and from Albuquerque, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. From Nashville, Tennessee, I moved to a little place called Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. From there, I moved to Toledo, Ohio. From Toledo, Ohio, back to Texas. And from Texas, I've been in Texas until I moved to California 2 years ago. So I've been a little bit everywhere.
And you've had a few different jobs.
A lot of different jobs. My last job, which was about 15 years altogether, the one I retired from, I was a customer service rep for an insurance and 401k company. I was actually their first customer service rep, and I helped them write the manual for, the employees manual and that sort of thing. And I learned, and we all learned as we went along, because it was a new company, a new division of a company, so it was all brand new. Very interesting. I love to help people. And I felt like I did. I could explain how the insurance worked for them. I could talk about claims with them, that sort of thing, so they would understand what their benefits were, and after a claim was paid, what was paid on it, and why. And I had a great time there. I met many interesting people. A lot of them are still my friends. We're still friends today, and I've been retired 11 years, almost 12. So yeah, work is a wonderful place to meet people. I have so many work friends that I've had sometimes 30 years, 35, 40 years, because you meet and you're with each other practically more than you're with your spouse. So you get to know each other pretty well. And I have a lot of friends like that, that I've gotten to know each other through work. And I really, really love that I still have them.
Hmm. For young people who haven't had a job yet, do you have any lessons learned or advice when they work in different companies?
Well, my biggest piece of advice is be friendly, but don't let yourself be pulled into the politics of the workplace, because that's going to cause you nothing but grief. I found that I was friendly to everyone, but I just kind of stayed to myself when there was a lot of trouble going on. And there's always going to be trouble in every workplace. Something's going to go on. It's just the way life is. That's the way life is. Nothing runs smoothly forever. But you just have to decide how you want to be in that work situation. Do you want to be in the politics? And if not, just don't get in it. It's pretty simple. Doesn't feel that way when you've got people pulling in different directions, but it really is simple. Make your mind up and do whatever you feel is right for you.
One thing I find is some people say they don't like their job because there are a lot of politics at the workplace. But as I've learned, and maybe you've learned, there are politics at every workplace. And any thoughts about that?
There are politics in everything. If you join a club, an organization, a gym, anything, there are going to be politics, because there are people who simply can't exist without that. So they're going to bring it in with them. And if you don't, like I said, if you don't want to be part of it, just don't join in. Keep your opinion to yourself. But if you do, then join in, get involved. I've done both ways. So it's whatever your heart tells you to do, really.
And
But
what would you
there's politics in everything.
well, what would you say are some examples of the type of politics at the workplace?
Well, I'll just give an example, just a slight one. We had a lot of changes when you're starting at my last job. When you're starting something new, you have to be flexible, because things are going to change in a moment. You're not going to have a lot of time beforehand to acclimate yourself. So you have to learn to be flexible. And flexibility in the workplace is probably the hardest lesson to learn. If you are, say you've done something for 5 years in one particular way, and all of a sudden everything gets changed. They change the rules, they change the software, they change whatever you're used to, and you have to get used to whatever's new. Sometimes you have to work a little harder at it if you don't acclimate quickly, but you still have to do it if you want to keep your job. And if you're like I was, that job was whether I had a roof over my head and food to feed my children. So yeah, I had to acclimate.
One thing I found in the past, that politics often have to do with people griping about other people and whether you take sides with them and which side you're on.
Yes, that's very true. And there's always a lot of that. You'll have personalities that just do not mesh. I mean, that's everywhere. And when that happens, then there's friction. And depending on how I don't know how to say this, how bent they are on their particular idea, then that, if you have two people who are very abrasive, then you're going to have sides, or you're going to have to be neutral. I prefer to be neutral. Unless it's somebody that's really in the right and the other person's really in the wrong, then I have to put my 2 cents worth in. But I try not to.
Makes sense. Good. Let's see. In your life, what have been some of the things that you've been good at and not so good at?
Well, I've had a band. I can sing fairly well. I write books. I'm good at writing. Always been good at writing, even short stories and stuff like that in school. I am a pretty good gardener. I love to grow things. I'm a pretty good cook. People say I make some of the best brownies they've ever tasted. I've only been making them 40 years. They should be good by now. But anyway, I am known for those 4 things, definitely. The singing, the gardening. I love to dance. So 5 things: cooking, all that good stuff. And things I'm not so good at. When I retired, I wanted to learn to play the piano. And I had a piano. I had bought it a couple of years, or I don't know, several years before I retired. Anyway, I had tried to teach myself, and I was terrible. And I wasn't any better when I had the whole day to concentrate on it. So that's something I'm very bad at. I'm not good at other instruments either. I did learn to play the guitar a little. Many years ago, I had a sister-in-law who unfortunately passed away in December. We were great friends for 60 years, but she could play the piano. She had a beautiful soprano voice. She could play the guitar. She taught herself, and while she was teaching herself, she taught me quite a bit. And we used to play and sing together. I'm a contralto. She was a soprano. We had good harmony. So I enjoyed that, but I was never really good at it. I just knew a few chords. So, that's one thing I'm frustrated about, my inability to learn an instrument.
Interesting. Do you have any particular childhood memories or throughout your life that a particular one you'd like to share?
Oh, I would love to. I I have a lot. I was very, very lucky in having wonderful parents, loving, warm, friendly, and they were very much volunteers in our community, and they taught us that, and so we learned it well. But anyway, one particular family reunion on the banks of the Brazos River. We all just camped out. Nobody had tents or campers. It was very rough. It was back in the 60s. They strung a few blankets up to make some shade for my grandmother. Anyway, all of us kids were swim. Well, I was wading around in the water. I didn't know how to swim. My brother was 10 years older than me, so I was 12. He was 22, and he was home from the Marines, so it was a big occasion. And I've been bugging him. We'd been there a couple of days, and I was driving him crazy to teach me to swim. And he finally got so frustrated with me. He says, "Okay, I'll teach you to swim." So we go down to the bank of the river, and he picks me up and throws me in the water and walks off. And he says, "Now swim." Guess what? I did. I swam to where I could stand up, and then I tried to kill him. But it's still a good memory. He was that kind of guy. My brother was wonderful.
Nice. Any other stories you want to tell?
Oh my, I have so many. When I was about 4, we were living in South Carolina, and we came to Texas. I don't know, it was summertime, so I guess it might have been for Labor Day or 4th of July, some kind of holiday. My dad gets some time off. Anyway, I had a cousin who was just a few months older than me. Her name was Carol Ann. And we were outside playing, and we were making mud pies. There had been some rain, and there was mud on the bumpers of all the vehicles. We were pulling it off and mixing it with rainwater and getting muddy and filthy and nasty. And we had mud pies stacked up all on the ground, drying in the sun. And my aunt came outside, and she looked at us, and she said, "You two are not going in my house. You look like mud pies." And we just started laughing. We'd been eating them too. Anyway, So she brings out this big aluminum tub and fills it full of water. And we had our bath on the porch because she would not let us in her new house on her new floor in our muddy state. But it was a great memory. Great, great memory.
That's good. Tell me, do you have any pet peeves?
Yeah, I'm a Texan to the core. People who don't drive the speed limit drive me crazy. I know it should not bother me, and I know it's very different in California. And I'm trying to slow my crazy self down, but it is a big aggravation to me.
Any other pet peeves?
Uh, Rude people. There's no call to be rude. If someone upsets you, walk away. You don't have to be mean. And if you're upset with someone else, don't take it out on me or anybody else. We didn't do anything to you. So rude people really bother me.
That's a good one. We're almost done here. What are you proud of?
I am very proud of my boys. I did a lot to get them, and they were worth every minute of it. My oldest son is 52. He has a really nice position with the Texas Commission of, let me get that right, Texas Historical Commission. He's their head of their military affairs. He has just finished writing a book, an illustrated book about Texas' contribution to World War One. It'll be coming out through A&M Press, I think, in a couple of months. He's a very, very well educated man because he reads constantly, and he is inquisitive and asks questions. And as my youngest son says, he's a nerd, but that's okay. Glad he's a nerd. He has two beautiful children, a wonderful wife, and they're building their dream home out in a little town, or close to a little town called Lockhart in Texas. They just sold their house just north of Houston, Austin. And so they've started construction out there now. Well, getting ready for construction, putting in driveways and that sort of thing, because it's just bare ground. It's an acre. And they're excited about that. They're living in their little RV with their dog Bart, who's a black lab, weighs about 80 pounds and the most loving thing you'll ever see. But both their kids are in college. The oldest one just turned 23, and she'll be here tomorrow. I'm so excited. And she's working on her master's in equine science at A&M. And the boy is 20, and he will graduate next December, I believe, after 3 years for his undergraduate, and he's going on to medical school. So proud grandma. The other son has a son and daughter. They're not his biological children, but they're his children just as well as if he had, been their father, biological father. He came into their lives when they were 5 and 10. They're my grandbabies too, always have been. I lived with them, all of them, for a while in Longview, Texas, and then the older boy moved out, and then he came home, and then he got big enough to leave. You know how that goes. And their daughter got married in March. We all flew to Texas for her wedding. They're doing very well. My oldest grandson is 25, and he has 2 boys, and he has a baby on the way. He'll be here in October, and we've got our fingers crossed for a girl. We want to buy pretty dresses. But anyway, those are the biggest things I'm proud of in my entire life are those boys and those grandkids.
Nice. Is there anything, as opposed to being proud, that you're embarrassed by or not proud?
Been overweight all of my life. I have fought it and fought it. I'm down I'm below, way less than I did in high school right now. So, and that's not a lot. That's a lot. It's not a little. Anyway, I have lost 180 pounds. It's taken me 6 years, and I've got about 40 or 50 more. I'm not limiting myself, but I want to get that much. But this last year, I've gone up and down 4 or 5 pounds, up and down 4 or 5 pounds. It's been so hard, but I'm going to stick with it. I go to the gym 3 times a week for 2 hours each time. I exercise at the senior center on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour. I help set up and tear down at the senior center, so I get exercise there. Plus, I'm active at home. So I'm very active. I watch what I eat. I'm on a gluten-free, try to be as much fat-free as possible diet. I've learned to cook really, really tasty food doing that because I've been doing it for years now. So I have a bunch of recipes. If anybody wants any, I'm happy to share. Recipes for cakes and pies and all kinds of goodies, even brownies. So you can eat well and still diet if you know how to eat well. That's the most important lesson you can learn when you're trying to lose weight. Learning the things that are bad for you and staying away from them. And that's the hard part, the staying away. The learning is easy, the staying away, not so much. I'm addicted to sugar, and I know that. So I try to get my sugar, my cravings, I do it through fruit, oranges and apples and that sort of thing. It helps with the appetite, and it gives you that sweet that you're looking for. And I make stuff like sugar-free jelly and sugar-free apple butter and that kind of thing. So when I have a piece of toast, and I eat toast, whole grain toast, if I have a piece of toast, I can have some apple butter on it, and yum, it's so good.
Good advice. Do you have any thoughts on how you would like to be remembered when you're gone?
I would like to be remembered as a friend. I have had a lot of good friends in my life, and I value them. And I would very much like to be remembered that way.
Very nice. And lastly, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I can't really think of anything else, Larry. And that's unusual because I talk all the time. Tell you, Anne's never at a loss for words.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Larry. Goodbye.